Hello there and welcome to Black Jackal Gaming. We're going to take a look at the Ballistus Dreadnought, which is the range Primaris variant of Dreadnoughts. Got really strong anti-tank weapons, which serves it well. Got a nice ability when targeting units that are above half strength. And it isn't too bad at targeting infantry as well. Let's take a look at it. It comes in at 140 points for the model. Got movement 8 inches, toughness 10, a really nice 2-up save, 12 wounds, leadership 6 and objective control 4. It does have deadly demise D3, so when it is destroyed on a D6 roll of a 6, it is D3 mortal wounds. It comes with a range profile of ballistic skill 3+, and as standard it comes with a twin storm bolter. This has the rapid fire 2 keyword, so when you're at half range get an extra 2 attacks, and twin link to reroll the wound roll. Got 24 inch range, 2 attacks, strength 4, 0 AP, 1 damage. It comes with 2 main weapons, the first one being the Ballistus missile launcher, which has 2 firing options. First being frag, which has the blast keyword, so every 5 models in the unit you get +1 attack. Got 48 inch range, 2d6 attacks, strength 5, 0 AP, 1 damage. And the other option is crack, which is a 40 inch range, 2 attacks, strength 10, -2 AP and d6 damage. Finally, we have the Ballistus las cannon, its main weapon. This comes with a 48 inch range, 2 attacks, strength 12, -3 AP and d6 +1 damage. Looking at the melee profile, it comes in at weapon skill 3+, and it's equipped just with its armoured feet. This is 5 attacks at strength 7, 0 AP, 1 damage. Moving on to its ability, it has the Ballistus strike. Each time this model makes a ranged attack that targets a unit that is not below half strength, you can reroll the hit roll. So this is really nice. It's basically a self-contained alpha moment for the model if it's targeting a unit that's not below half strength. So it allows you a little bit more flexibility with your target priority when you've got this guy on the field. Looking at the detachments that it's good in and the leaders it can take. So the only one really it can take that's going to bump it up is the Tech Marine. This allows it to be healed D3 wounds in a command phase. It can also be selected to have +1 to hit, which is very nice. Gives you a little bit more efficiency out the model. First up we have the Gladius Strike Force. This has the combat doctrines. Now you're best served using the Devastator doctrine because this then accesses the Storm of Fire strat. This gives you the gain ignore cover keyword, and if you're in the Devastator doctrine, you increase AP by 1. So this is really nice, especially when targeting Space Marines, because not only are they not going to receive the benefits of cover, the increase of AP is going to negate Armor of Contempt. It's also good going into your infantry, because if they are getting cover, not only are you wiping that away when you're using your frag profile with your missile launcher, you then get an AP as well to bump it up a little bit. So any of your T3 bodies are going to be shredded by this. Then we've got the Anvil Siege Force, so you gain the heavy keyword. This is great if you don't have the Tech Marine because it gives you that +1 to hit when you're stationary. But if you do have the Tech Marine, it's really nice if any armies can give you a -1 to hit. You can negate that and still receive your +1 to hit because you've got 2 +1 to hit. Can't take them both at the same time, obviously. When one's deactivated by the minus, the other one will then activate. They've got a really nice stratagem called No Threat Too Good. This allows you to reroll the wound roll when you're against a monster or vehicle unit. These are probably going to be the main units you're targeting with your high strength, high damage weapons. And this essentially will give you the full old school alpha moment. So you get the full reroll to hit via your ability, and then the reroll to wound, which is really nice to have. There's another strat called Battle Drill Recall, which is really nice as well. This allows you to gain the sustained hits 1 keyword. So any critical hit, you'll get 1 additional hit. So if you manage to spike this with your las cannon, it's going to do a lot of additional damage. And if you're stationary, you get to critically hit on a 5+, which is going to be really nice. Even with your frag option on your missile launcher, especially if you activate and blast, if you're going into a 10-man unit, you're going to get a lot of additional hits with this. This really opens up the ability to split fire and target infantry and a vehicle at the same time. Then we have the Stormland Task Force. This gives you the Advance and Charge. Advance and Charge is always useful, especially if you want to access the stratagem Tank Shock. Unfortunately, they have lost the trick they had via the last balanced data slate, where they were allowed to move when an enemy model finished normal, advanced, or fallback move within 9 inches. They've now clarified that is only for infantry and mounted, so one of the best tricks to use for the vehicles is gone from that detachment, but Advance and Charge is always useful. Onto the Firestorm Assault. This gives you the assault keyword, so it allows you to advance and still fire your weapons, which are always good. And if you targeted someone within 12 inches, you would get that +1 strength. This would mean that you are wounding everything on the game on no worse than a 3+, which is really nice. That's with your las cannon, of course. The only downside to this, there's no buffs outside of the detachment rule that you can take, because none of the enhancements target any vehicles, and none of the stratagems are vehicle locked. Then we have Vanguard, always a useful one to have. The detachment rule is when you're outside of 12 inches, you're -1 to hit and you gain the benefits of cover, so it allows him to stay around for much longer during the game. Again, there's no buffs outside of this because all the stratagems are pretty much infantry or full boss locked. Then we have the First Company Task Force. Once again, you get to reroll wounds with Oath of Moment, which could be useful. But unfortunately, it is a pretty trash detachment, so you're not going to be taking it. Finally, we move on to the Ironstorm Spearhead. This allows you to reroll a hit, wound, or damage roll for a unit in each phase, which is really nice. Especially when you have that variable damage on both your missile launcher and your las cannon, being the D6 damage or the D6+1 damage. Allows you to get a little bit more efficiency out of it. They got an enhancement called a Target Augury Web, which is really nice. It allows the Tech Marines to give one vehicle lethal hits, which is going to be really nice to have. So you'd have a Tech Marine giving you not only +1 to hit in the command phase, but also give you lethal hits as well. So of course, lethal hits, if you critically hit on a 6+, they will automatically wound the opponent. There's another enhancement called Master of Machine War. This is based on a character and it allows them to select one vehicle and that vehicle can advance or fall back and still be able to shoot. So if you need to get yourself into position to crack off some key and vital shots, you can. And as well as if someone tries to tie you up in combat, you can fall out and shoot at them as well. You can, of course, shoot into combat with big guns, never tie it. However, if you're tied up by infantry, you probably want to use the frag profile, which is blast, and you cannot use that engagement range. Then we have a stratagem called Mercy's Weakness. You gain sustained hits 1 as your vehicle. You will also critically hit on a 5+. So like the other stratagem, anytime you can sustain hit and critically hit on a 5+, you're going to really ramp up your efficiency. Because you have the full reroll to hit as well, you can really fish for these and try and make sure you're getting those sustained hits with your las cannon. It's also really good with your frag option on your missile launcher because, again, having that full reroll and the 5+, you're going to get a lot of additional hits. There's another stratagem called Ancient Fury. This improves the model's movement, toughness, leadership, and OC by 1, which is really nice. And it also grants you +1 to hit. Again, this ties in really well because it makes you more efficient. And again, with the Tech Marine, it just negates anyone's ability to give you a -1 to hit. And finally, we have the Power of the Machine Spirit, another stratagem. After your opponent has shot at the Ballistus and taken it below half strength, you get to shoot back at that target as if it's the shooting phase. So this adds another dimension to the Ballistus because he is a hard-hitting unit and has quite a lot of flexibility to what he can do. If they do try and target him to knock off a couple of wounds, they are risking him firing back at full force and doing a lot of damage. So what type of tactical play can you have with the Ballistus? Well, with him being able to natively reroll the hits, it allows him to operate quite independently because he doesn't have to lean on Oaths of Moment, so he can be utilised as more of a lone wolf unit trying to hunt down targets, operating outside of the rest of your battle plan. If you're trying to really focus down one side and lean into Oaths of Moment, you don't really need to utilise him in that way because he can go elsewhere on the battlefield and add a little bit more dimension to your play. If you do choose to combine him with Oaths, that +1 to wound really pushes through a lot of the thresholds. You would then be wounding Space Marines on 2+ because it is a strength 5 on your frag, and the las cannon, because it comes in natively at strength 12, will be wounding the toughest things on the game 4+, so this will move it to 3+. And a lot of the other units in the game, you will be hitting them on 2+, which is very nice. Being as cheap as it is, coming in at 140 points, you should really be considering taking at least 2 of them. And if you want the most consistent output, you really want to have Ironstorm with them because they do have the ability to reroll the hit roll if the unit is above half strength. It really means you want to target different units with these Dreadnoughts. If you try and focus fire on the one and one you happen to take it below half strength, this does put you in the position where you're not going to get that reroll. So you want to really target units that they can take on individually. But you do also have the option of using one of the weapons to destroy one smaller unit and then clink off some wounds of another unit. So then the second Ballistus will still activate that full reroll and be able to take out the tougher unit. It is best used in Ironstorm with the Tech Marine. Having that +1 to hit is really going to be advantageous, especially if you can give them the lethal hits as well. Having such a high damage output and being quite tough, you can either push them down the center, take the ground that you want to take and have maximum damage to your opponent, because they are going to be trying to take the center as well, so you can take out their high value target, or you can split them off and try and secure another flank. With them being a 2+ save makes them very durable. And they can operate as the lone wolves, like we said before, because they don't need Oath of Moment to operate, which makes them a real high value target for your opponent, so they would have to split off. And it then makes your opponent have to consider how many points to allocate to deal with the Ballistus Dreadnought. If you are going Ironstorm, the Mercy's weakness stratagem is activated when a unit's below starting strength, so you can really use some other units to clink off a couple of wounds, just to take them into the threshold that you need, and then this will give the Ballistus the stay hit 1 with the critically hitting on the 5+. So you'll have the full rerolls to fish for your critical hits, and then if you're using the Tech Marine as well, this can be really nice because you're going to be able to get possibly even 4 las cannon shots through, and then you have the crack option on your missile launcher as well. If you can target a tough unit, even if it's toughness 12, and just clink off that 1 wound using small arms fire, it will really activate this unit. A lot of the missions and layouts do really require you to take the central position. A lot of the objectives are based on holding the center and preventing your opponent from holding the center. So it really does push these guys forward for taking the central objective. That 2-up save is going to be really nice, especially with the 12 wounds and toughness 10. Puts them in quite a nice little bracket. And then it does make your opponent consider, because you do have the power of the machine spirit. So if they do try and target these guys, who, if you've got 2 of them on objective, they are going to pretty much fill a lot of it. So your opponent's going to be hard to get on it, and they'll have the 8 objective control. And if they do target them and take them below half strength, well, you can activate to shoot. So you've got multiple turns of shooting within one battle round. You do also have Overwatch, which ties in really nicely with your ability to reroll the hits. So you can really fish to make sure you get those 6s. Usually it's quite hard to get 6s when you've only got 2 shots on your las cannon, but you do have the frag launcher option, which you got the 2d6 attacks plus blast. And if you are fishing for those 6s, if any infantry are coming in, you've got the ability to wipe them out before they get on the objective with you. Because of their durability and their high OC, it makes it really hard for your opponent to shift them off of objectives. If you've only got 1 on, obviously they can play around it because objectives are quite big, and if they get objective 2 battle line units on it, they are going to be able to just out OC you. But it's going to be very hard to shift 2 of these off of 1 objective, especially if they've got some support with infantry. You do also have the stratagem that will give them +1 to the OC, which can push you across the threshold as well. If they've got a 5-man unit that are all 1 OC, or just pulling that stratagem will allow you just to take it, to either contest it to prevent them scoring points, or to take it off them altogether. It's really useful in the 5th battle round if you're going second. If you need that additional 5 points, just being able to push it onto an objective and give them +1 OC, you are really making your opponent think about how many points and what resource they need to hold on to objectives to secure the game. So in conclusion, the Ballistus is in a really nice position because it is a lone wolf and can operate of Oath of Moment. It allows you to focus your Oath of Moment elsewhere, giving you basically 2 avenues of maximizing your damage. It's also probably the most consistent range damage for the price, with easy access to +1. You do have some of the Gladiator variants, which are quite good, but they are more expensive and probably slightly less consistent. They're also not as durable. And then you have the Vindicator, which is a really good option, but is much more pricey, and it does have that variable hit output. So you can go from having a much higher damage output one turn to having almost no damage output the next turn if you happen to roll a 1 on the d6. Because its durability with that 2+ save, toughness 10, 12 wounds, it does make it a good option to hold on to objectives. With it being on the circular base as well, rather than an oval base or just a tank, it does make it a little bit easier maneuvering around ruins and going through gaps as well without having to pivot as much. The missile launch is probably not looked on as favourably as it should be. It really does pack a punch against infantry, which makes it much harder to be tied down. Having 2d6 strength 5 attacks is going to really aid it to stop it just from being targeted by the likes of guard and that coming in. You can do a lot of damage, especially in Overwatch against these type of units when they come in, especially with your reroll to hit. Just to put that threat into them, where do they really want to be moving into range and trying to get on objective with this guy, because he can do a fair amount of damage. Now, he does operate well in all of the detachments, even the ones that don't boost him at all. Having that native reroll to hit is very nice, and he's just got a really good data sheet for his points value. You're going to be able to take him in all the detachments, but if you do want to get the most out of him, it is really Ironstorm you want to lean into, or Gladius, because Gladius is the flexible detachment that gets the best out of all the units, really. If you liked the video, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel to see all future content. Take it easy, I'll see you next time.